What's the Church of Scientology so afraid of?
This is SPTV.
Let me bring up our little name tags here so people can see what's going on. William Good, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. You and I have never spoken until about 3 minutes ago.
Yeah.
But I've been a big fan of what you've been doing on the streets of Hollywood and Los Angeles for a long time. So it's a pleasure to speak with you.
I'm a big fan of yours too. I've learned a lot about Scientology because of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Guys, if you're not already familiar with William Good and who he is, he's got a couple channels here I'm going to show you. Scientology Audit is one of his YouTube channels. He's got a bigger channel called Film the Police LA. And then he's got his Twitter account, which is where I see most of his stuff, Film the Police LA. Now, I'll tell you what, when I first saw your content and started mentioning it on my channel, I was actually a little afraid to promote it. And because you are very strong and aggressive in what you do, not just on Scientology, but with the LAPD. And you've got a whole story that we haven't even spoken about, but I'm going to want to ask you about. And I was like, man, I love what this guy's doing, but I'm afraid if I promote it, Scientologists are going to be like, oh, that's just a bunch. He's just, harassing and antagonizing and being hateful. But the more I've watched your stuff, the more I'm like, God, I just want to promote that. Like, he's doing such a good job. So where can we start this conversation? Do you want to start talking about how you started the Film the Police stuff, or do you want to jump forward and how you started doing Scientology stuff?
Yeah, I could start off from the beginning with the police stuff.
Please do. Tell me what happened.
Yeah, so quite honestly, I didn't really have much of a beef with the police up until 2020 when George Floyd incident happened. And I got involved with protesting. And then I realized with the protesting, after a month or so, I realized this really isn't going to get anywhere just protesting by itself. Going to have to actually go out there. And I looked at it as sort of like a pep rally. At some point, you got to go out there and play the game. So what I decided to do was start cop watching. And over the last 3 years, I've really focused hard on, holding the LAPD accountable. It probably takes up most of my activism time. And during the course of that, over the 3 years, I guess it was earlier this summer, or maybe late spring, I was filming a police stop in Hollywood on Ivar by one of the Scientology centers. And while I was filming, the Scientologists kept on coming outside and trying to interrupt my filming. They kept on walking out of the door. They told me I had to leave the sidewalk, which is something. Tell me I have to leave the sidewalk. Then from there, they started trying to bump into me, claiming I was a fire hazard, which I was nowhere near their doorway. Plus, it was 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday night. This office building, why do you need so much traffic coming out of a side door? Why was it that important? I think that I felt at the time that they were doing this to run interference for the LAPD, being that they do have a pretty close relationship. And it kind of escalated from there, started having words with the security guard, and eventually he told me to, I won't use the exact words, but essentially fillet him. And from there, it just I told him then, you guys are going to have a war now, and now I'm going to have to end your organization. And so that's how we got started in this. And I told him that too. And
I saw those videos, and I want to comment on this a little bit from what my perspective was when I was a good little Scientologist and a good little Sea Org member. I bought into the propaganda that L. Ron Hubbard pushes, that basically the guys in charge are the good guys. And if you've got a problem with the guys in charge, it's because you have crimes that you don't want to be found out. It's this assumption that there's this benevolency of the people who are in charge. And as a good little Scientologist, I extended that to the police. I have, during my entire lifetime, because of my upbringing in Scientology, been a very, very pro-cop guy. And I'm a little embarrassed to say that only changed when I had my own horrible interaction with the Clearwater police on the beach in an incident I've discussed on my channel. And they were horrible, such an abuse of power, such a neglect of duty, such not care. And I'm the one who called them for help. I'm the one who called them, and they treated me like shit. And I thought to myself, I'm just going to say it out loud, honestly, if a straight white male who looks like me is going to be treated like this, when I called them, what in the hell is happening to other people?
Yeah.
And I know there's going to be people out there who are like, oh, you only cared when it happened to you. Hey, sometimes that's what it takes to open your eyes.
Yeah, yeah.
So many years ago, I would have been offended by the stuff that you do filming the police. But now I see it through, I lost him. Hold on. Are you there? Many years ago, I would have been offended. But now I look at it through another lens. I go, no. They need to be held to a higher standard. They need to know what the laws are. They need to be forced to color within the lines and not an inch outside of them. And I got to say, I love what you do, and I almost feel a little hypocritical to go when I've thought, oh, I just wish he wouldn't yell so much. Oh, I wish he wouldn't curse so much. I go, why? Why do I care about that? Why would anyone care about that? Their job is they need to be people who do their job perfectly, because they have the ability to end lives.
Yes.
And the reason I wanted to say all that is because those Sea Org members that you're dealing with in Scientology see the police as the good guys, and full stop. It doesn't matter if they break the rules, because they're doing it for the greater good. They think of the police the way they think of themselves.
Yeah, listen, I don't even actually want to hold them to a higher standard. I want to hold them to the same standard that we're all held to. For instance, I see people getting pulled over all the time. The number one reason people are pulled over and have their cars searched in Hollywood is because of missing plates or illegal tints. Now, like I said, it usually leads to a handcuffing and the car being searched, even though that would be an illegal search, because that's not a sufficient enough reason from the Fourth Amendment standpoint to actually search a car. So when I see them doing that and handcuffing and searching people and having them detained for 45 minutes and kind of just like ruin their whole night because they're traumatized afterwards. But then I go to the police station, I see them pulling out of the parking lot in cars that have illegal tints and missing plates. It's a problem. We entrust them to enforce the laws on us. They should follow that same standard. So that, at the end of the day, I just want them to follow the same rules that we have to follow. Oftentimes they feel that they're exempt from laws, and quite honestly, I see the same thing from the Scientologists.
Yeah. Now, because you're so prolific in your filming, you've gotten to the point where you recognize these officers. These officers. Their names. You see them popping up time and time again at the different Scientology events, and honestly crossing lines. Asking for identification when they shouldn't. Things like this. How can you describe what you have observed as far as this inappropriate? Would you call it an inappropriate relationship between the LAPD and Scientology?
Yes, absolutely. It's totally inappropriate. First off, like you said, they cross way too many lines. The incident I think that you were just talking about, where one of the senior lead officers, the guy who is essentially the representative for the police department to the community in Hollywood, in the HAD area, the Hollywood entertainment area, I had seen him over there by the Scientology Center on Sunset, which is outside of his area. It's a different division. He showed up there in uniform with his police car, and rather than walk into the building, he made a beeline over to the person who was filming out in the street legally, and immediately went up to him and tried to intimidate him by asking his name. Now, I confronted him about that, and he got, his words were mumbled, and he felt very nervous about that. But to me, he crossed the line. First off, he was doing it because he was trying to intimidate him. It was clear what they was trying to do. And that is something that I see happen often, even daily. Quite honestly, every time that I have an interaction with the Scientologists and the LAPD, they always put their finger on the scale for the Scientologists.
That's what really gets me, because I'll tell you, here in Clearwater, Florida, there's some sort of an approval process for organizations to get on the list of organizations that are allowed to hire police officers for off-duty work, whether it's security work, crowd control, whatever the hell it is. Once you're on that list, they're not allowed to deny you. They're not allowed to deny you the right to hire these off-duty folks. That there's some process to get you removed from the list. And it's one of these things where once you're on the list, the police would then, I guess, subject themselves to accusations of religious discrimination if they didn't let Scientology continue to hire off-duty cops. Now, I went through one of these little community citizen schools where you learn all about this, the city and the government. And I remember the chief in the day where we met with the chief of police, he was asked about this thing of Scientology hiring cops and the kind of image that sends. And he poo-pooed it. And that's when he explained the thing about the list and the approved list. And if you counted up all the dollars that came into the police force from Scientology, it was like less than 1% of all the dollars of organizations who hire cops. What is your opinion on the what is the difference between Scientology hiring these cops for off-duty work and how the cops behave? And let's say a local Christian church who's hiring them for crowd control at an event. Is there a difference?
Yeah, there is a difference. First off, it's funny you should mention that. I had a run-in a few weeks ago with a security guard over at the Scientology recruiting place. And he told a journalist out there, a guy named Joy of Everything on TikTok, he mentioned something about fair game. He took his picture, brought his picture into the security guard, then came out, made some really nasty comments and about his looks, and then threw out fair game. And so when I heard that, I kind of lost my mind, because I'm not going to allow that to happen. I'm not going to allow him to intimidate, especially a journalist, because I have a lot of friends that are journalists just in the work that I do. And so I take offense to that. And so I let him know that, fair game goes both ways. And I immediately started working on identifying him, and come to find out he works for a private security company, Talon Security. Mm-hmm. I didn't know much about it until recently because of that, but I guess their main client may be the Church of Scientology. And apparently they do a lot of their private investigative work. Well, I started digging again last night, and come to find out that there are 4 LAPD officers current that work for that private investigative firm, which is a problem because
4 officers who work for Talon?
Yes. And the problem with that is that LAPD officers are banned from working for private investigative firms. There was a scandal that happened, I think early 2000s, where officers were doing private investigative work, but then using LAPD resources in their work, their side work, doing private investigative work. And so they banned them from doing that. So now I know that there are 4 officers in the LAPD that are violating LAPD policy by working for this company. And I don't think, now that I know what Talon Security is, and knowing that they have that link with the Church of Scientology, I find it hard to believe that the officers working there don't understand that link also. Also, additionally, the old captain here in Hollywood, Corey Palka, I believe, I've heard it was a Scientologist, and he was very close. He did a lot of work with the Scientologists. He also did a lot of work with Les Moonves, trying to cover up his rape allegations back then too. And I think that it led to a relationship that kind of blossomed with the Hollywood LAPD, to the point where they even had a Scientology kiosk inside the LAPD station in Hollywood.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Now, for the record, just so my viewers, I don't think Corey was ever a Scientologist, but at some point when you're that close to them, does it really matter?
Yeah. I think it's hard to be a police officer in Hollywood without having some sort of relationship with the Scientologists, because they own so much real estate, especially in, Hollywood Boulevard area. And, they do fundraisers for the LAPD. I believe every summer they do a fundraiser and drop them a lump sum. So they've really fostered that relationship. I've told the senior lead officers that I'm tired of it. I see in Scientology brochures, I'll call it propaganda, them constantly linking themselves to the LAPD, showing their pictures with the LAPD, showing them doing cleanups with the LAPD. And I think that, essentially they're using the LAPD in that sense, and the LAPD is allowing themselves to be used. So therefore, the LAPD can't play like they are, innocent in all this. They have to take some responsibility.
I think that's interesting. When you're working for the public, as the police do, they're public servants.
Yes, right.
there's an image thing to consider. Now some attorney might come in and be like, "Oh, you have to also consider religious discrimination and everything." And I go, "Look, Scientology is an organization that not only already has their own internal security force, the security guards that you work with, security guards in Scientology are not low man on the totem pole positions. Security guards, generally speaking, are senior in rank and in echelon to the people inside those buildings that they're guarding. Okay. They have their own did you know that?
No, I didn't know that, but I suspected it because I see that the way that the security guards act, the way they sort of boss the members around, almost like
Yes.
they're the managers.
It's not like a corporation or some business where the security guards are literally the lowest level position in the organization. It's the opposite in Scientology. So Scientology already has its own internal security force, and it already has external private security a la Talon. The LAPD have to know that Scientology has no use or need of the LAPD other than propaganda and appearances. They have to know they're being used. And I think they would have to take that into consideration when going, are we going to allow them to hire us when we know they don't actually need us? They just want to hide behind us. Now, I believe there's a handful of those officers, for sure, at least the 4 that you've mentioned there. They're not being tricked. They want to be in Scientology's pocket. They are in Scientology's pocket. They do hate the people that Scientology hates. Has that been your takeaway?
Yeah, listen, I personally think that those 4 officers, not only do they understand what's going on, I believe that they may very well be Scientologists themselves.
Mm.
I just think that, listen, I think that in general society, especially here in Hollywood, Scientologists are not well liked. I think a lot of people are upset by their actions on a regular basis, the way that they're disassociated from the rest of the community, the way that they, I think it's like there's some resentment that they own so much property, not just property, but prime, historic properties that seem to be empty, and they're just sort of sitting there, especially even along the boulevard. I think, when I talk to my neighbors, I talk to people in the community, they're bothered by that. They find them off-putting with everything from their personalities to the way they dress to, I think most people look at them as being cults. People who are in Hollywood are pretty familiar with them, as opposed to the tourists I deal with who know nothing about them. Being that they have that sort of negative look from the community, but then you see that juxtaposition between with the police department, how the police department bends over backwards. All of them, quite honestly, and I feel like it's sort of they're taking the cues from leadership who seems to be very close with the Scientologists, to where regular officers, even just the other day, watching them arrest somebody on behalf of the security guard because a woman touched him. A woman who was dancing touched the security guard and had her arrested. But when another security guard made a beeline over to me, got into my face, put his hands up, touched my hand on my phone, they said, well, that's incidental. So it just shows that there's a double standard in the way that that we are treated versus the way that Scientologists are treated.
I saw that. It was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
That one of the locations, there's 2 locations you spend a lot of time outside of. One is what I would call the HGB. What do you call that building? The middle management building where the buses are.
I don't call it. I just call it the Hollywood building on Ivar. That's the only thing I call it.
So that's called the Hollywood Guarantee Building. In Scientology, it's called the HGB. Did you know that's the location of middle management?
No, I did not. Interesting.
So the first floor is the L. Ron Hubbard Life Exhibition Museum.
Sure.
Everything else above that is middle management.
Well, it's funny. I was just actually walking by there about an hour ago, and I always see them moving boxes, bags, and like carts full of boxes back and forth across the street. I can't. I mean, it's all day, all night. And I'm just trying to understand what they're actually doing with all that.
I'll fill some of that vacuum for you. So, by the way, I'm sure you've heard me and others talk about the Office of Special Affairs, OSA.
Yes. Yes.
In that building is the offices of OSA International.
Wow.
That's where that's located.
Wow. Wow.
That's why they don't want you standing outside that door, dude.
That's why I'm going to spend a lot more time outside that door. That
now,
is amazing.
across the street from Ivar, that is, and someone in the live chat can correct me on this. That's where all the space planning, that's the landlord office. That's where all the space planning and the fly-throughs and the design work for the ideal organizations, the new buildings that they're trying to open, that's where all that work gets done. And so when you see people shuttling back and forth, it's because of busy work like that.
Wow. Well, I learned something that they're going to have some trouble now.
So if you go down to L. Ron Hubbard Way, those there's a bunch of different organizations. The one in the big blue buildings, those are service organizations. That's where people pay to do Scientology, right? You would call that a city level organization, okay? And then next to on L. Ron Hubbard Way on the south side, on the southeast side, there's like a management office tucked in the back of a parking lot, okay? Yeah. It'll say the Continental Liaison Office. That's the management office for the Western United States. Okay. So that's still continental management. So, but on the HGB building, that's middle management. That's international middle management. So everyone in that building is senior to everyone on L. Ron Hubbard Way.
Wow.
That's why they don't want you near that building.
Yeah. Now it's starting to make sense, because I couldn't understand from that first interaction I had with them where they wanted me gone. It just didn't make sense to me why at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night they cared so much. But yeah, now I get it.
And even though Miscavige almost certainly doesn't spend any time there anymore, the top floor of that building is David Miscavige's offices.
All this is happening right in my area, and I had no idea.
And the fact that security guard, by being a dick to you and telling you to blow him, basically made you their biggest enemy. That dude, if they still had an RPF, would probably be on the RPF.
Well, it's funny because when he said that, I was saying to myself, if that was any other security guard of a company, you would go and complain to the manager and say, this security guard told me to suck his, what. Somebody would get fired over that, but I was told that he'd probably be looked upon as, doing something good. But now I think the repercussions of it, I think they have to sense that. Well, I know for a fact, another security guard said to me maybe 2 weeks ago, he said, do you want me to have that guy apologize? I said, it's too late for that. It's too late. We're in this war now. There's no going back, and I'm going to finish this off. But wow, this is really interesting stuff.
We should have talked sooner.
I'm telling you, that building's going to go through a lot of things now.
Okay. One of the funniest things that you do is when you wait for all the SEARG members to come out and you get on the bus and you start telling them the OT3 materials about Xenu and the body thetans and the hydrogen bombs and the volcanoes. Now, they're not listening to you, but the fact that the security guards have to listen to you is really, really funny. And we could refine you could start giving them the clear cognition, because that's even more secret than the OT3 information. The clear cognition is something they're supposed to say in an auditing session that's supposed to indicate they've gotten rid of their reactive mind and achieved the state of clear. Almost no one in Scientology knows what that is, because even if you attest to the state of clear, they don't tell you what it is that you said that was the magical words, right?
Oh.
So you could save a lot of people a lot of time and money by giving them the clear cognition.
So you have to understand, I actually know very little about Scientology. I had this fight, leading up to this fight. I've been seeing the Scientologists on Hollywood Boulevard recruiting for years. I kind of just always waved them off when I'd walk by, but I didn't really pay much attention. And then I started seeing some documentaries. I'm like, wow, this is actually a really abusive, I don't even want to call it religion or whatever. It's very abusive. But I kind of kept a little bit of separation. But once, it comes back to the same thing that you went through with the police. You had your incident which opened your eyes and changed. And it's same thing with me. I had my incident. And so I come to this from, I guess, a different perspective, in the sense that a lot of their critics are usually ex-members or have family that are in Scientology. I've had none of that. I've had no sort of relationship with them whatsoever. And so as I've been fighting them, I've been trying to learn about Scientology on the fly. And so I know just the basic stuff. It's just that, when I start hearing about Xenu and stuff, it's hard to go any further in learning, because it's so absurd to me, that it's like, I don't know if I could even handle learning the ins and outs like that, because it's just kind of mind blowing. But hearing stuff like that, that's actually super helpful. It just, I want to be as effective as possible. And if I have that sort of knowledge to work with, I think I can do even more damage.
Yeah. And on my channel, I've been out of Scientology for long enough that it's hard for me to talk about the Xenu and the body thing and stuff without laughing, because it is just kind of funny. That stuff is so secretive. I did not know about that when I was in Scientology, because I never did those levels. And that's how secretive it is. And so even though on my channel, I spend more time focusing on the abusive, family destroying, human trafficking cult nature of Scientology, and I don't really make fun of them for the crazy beliefs, but if you're standing in front of security guards who are giving you a hard time and trying to violate your civil rights, hey, it doesn't hurt to feed them the clear cognition live on the internet,
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, listen, I do it for a couple of reasons. First off, I noticed when I did talk to them about, teaching about the other OT levels, their eyes open wide and they kind of try to back away. Where, the other members don't, they're not paying me any attention, but, they always usually sort of walk away, or they tell me I'm lying. I remember I was talking to one of them a few weeks ago. He's like, that's not true. He's like, I was like, doesn't that sound absurd when I was talking about Xenu? He said, yes, it sounds absurd. That's not true. I'm like, okay. I want to know what his reaction is going to be when he actually gets to OT3 and he learns about
exactly.
Xenu. That's going to be interesting.
Because the thing is, if he's not OT3, right? And if he's having to interact with you and hear about Xenu and the body thetans and all this stuff, and he's got to go report to someone, they're telling him that that's not true. So the day that he finally gets to OT3, he's going to be like, you're telling me that dude on the streets of Hollywood who was punking us, he's known the truth this whole time?
That is very interesting. Yeah, I'm going to have to inform them on all the levels now.
Yeah. Now, the other building that you spend a lot of time out of, in Scientology, they would call that the Hollywood Test Center. It's also known as the HI, or the Hollywood Inn building. And you'll stand outside there while they're handing out promo and being like, don't go in. It's a cult. Don't do it. Don't do it. They want your money. They want your information. Don't go in. And time after time after time, people who are about to walk in that door turn around and they walk out. If someone like you was posted up on that sidewalk 24/7, the statistics of that test center would go to zero.
It's funny you should mention that, because that was my goal with doing it. When I first started this, I said, okay, I'm going to end this organization. How do I go about doing it? And I came up with a plan. I said, okay, I will make videos and I will post them on TikTok. I think I can grow that pretty quickly. And, making them sort of funny is helpful too, just because it just gets more eyeballs. But at the same time, trying to inform people, not being totally silly, being serious also. And then from there, listen, even the people who do walk in after I warn them, they walk in there and it's in the back of their mind. They're remembering that I'm telling them they're going to charge you. They're going to try to sell you a book. They're going to try to sell you a seminar. And even if the recruiter is telling them, oh, that guy's crazy, don't listen to him, when they go to try to make that sale, they're going to remember that. And they often, I've noticed, walk out empty-handed. I always look at, do they come out with the book or not? Are they selling them the book? And, even if they do go in, the great majority of the time they walk out empty-handed, or they walk out shaking their head saying, you were right. You were right. So, yeah, I think it's important having people in front of these individual places. I was trying to, and I said this, I want to encourage as many people to go out there and do exactly what I'm doing as possible. Yes. I want to see it replicated elsewhere. I said I'm going to focus on TikTok at first, but then start focusing on YouTube. You have these, I'm a cop watcher, but you have a group of people who do what's called First Amendment auditing.
Yep.
Listen, it's not my thing. I don't think. Listen, do you have a right to stand in front of a post office or go into a post office and just film? Yes, it's public property. You have a right to do it. But why? Why? Just to annoy people? Rather than do that, rather than audit post offices or hospitals or small businesses, you have this target-rich environment full of, quite honestly, this is great content if you got, these people on YouTube. Listen, there's a lot of First Amendment auditors on YouTube, and they have hundreds of thousands of followers, and they make good money. Here's a target-rich environment. Go do it over there in front of the Scientologist centers. You'll make your money, but at the same time, you're actually doing a public good. You may be annoying them, but the average person in the public really doesn't care, or they're appreciative. So my whole thing is encouraging more and more people to go out there and do exactly what I'm doing. I think by doing that, listen, if I go past the what do you call it? HI? Is that what it's called?
The HI, yeah. Or the test center. Call it the test center.
If I go past the test center right now, they're going to have fewer people walking in there today than they did a year ago or even 6 months ago, even if no one is out there trying to interfere or disrupt their recruiting. I think that, listen, when I'm out there, people drive by all the time screaming, things about Scientology because they're seeing this stuff. They're seeing it on TikTok, multiple channels on TikTok. They're seeing this stuff on YouTube. And the word is getting out there. It's getting out there throughout Hollywood. When I'm out there, last night we were out there, we must have had 10 people out there helping them. They made, I call it sales, at the end, and that's why I consider them going in there and trying to make a sale. They made no sales last night. They accomplished nothing. When we left last night, one of the recruiters was crying. And she was crying out of frustration because they accomplished nothing. And so I want to replicate this.
I'm so glad you said that. I've been saying Scientology does not know what to do about this phenomena of YouTube. I call it, SPTV because so many former Scientologists are talking out, right? They haven't figured out that they can't shut this down, and they can't get us fired, and they can't get us canceled. And I've wondered how many creators would it take? Like anyone who does what you do, it would be my pleasure to promote their channels. How many different creators would it take to stand outside that test center every hour that it's open just to pull, I would say without swearing, without screaming, to go, sir, you don't want to go in there. It's a cult. They destroy families. They want your money. You don't want to go in there. It's a cult, sir. Ma'am, just so you know, Scientology is a cult. You don't want to go in there. How many creators, are there enough creators who'd be interested in doing that so that there's someone outside that place every hour that it's open? The statistics would go to zero. There's nothing Scientology could do about it. Everyone's following the law. It's even better if people happen to be being polite in the process, because then it doesn't give them ammunition, to whatever. It doesn't really matter, but I'm just saying. And I'm just letting you know, if you've got, there's people out there who approach you, they're interested in doing this, please let them know. I'm happy to promote their work and their channels if that helps them, make a decision to do the kind of work that you're doing.
Yeah, listen, it's funny you should mention that, because my plan was, listen, I just monetized my YouTube channel literally 2 days ago. And so what I was going to start doing is, the best way to recruit other people to do this is after a couple months, start showing them how much money I'm making from it. Here, guys, that's
what I started doing, trying to get other former Scientologists to do channels. I'm like, guys, you have no idea. This is the wild, wild west. There's nothing Scientology can do about this. And you can make money. It really is David Miscavige's worst nightmare.
Yeah, listen, I want to encourage. Listen, for me, it's not about the money. It's never about the money. I do a lot of activism, and it usually involves me putting my own money into it. It's not about the money for me, but I understand that I will get traffic and I will get hits, and it'll bring in money. And listen, I'll donate that money. I don't really care, but I want to show others that, hey, you know what? You can make this money. You guys are looking for, you content creators are looking for content. There it is right there. It's just waiting for you with a big bow on it. Take advantage of it. And they will. I think, honestly, people aren't going to turn down free money.
That's right. I have a soft spot in my heart for the First Amendment auditors. A friend of mine, Nasty Nathaniel on YouTube, is one of the big ones. And he does a lot of the First Amendment auditing outside of Scientology locations. And that's another thing. I've been a little distracted the last few months. I haven't been able to promote those kind of videos, but that's another thing. So just anyone you're in touch with who wants to do the First Amendment auditing outside of Scientology orgs or any of the other stuff, just please let them know. I'm happy to help them in any way that I can, because it's the power of the platform.
Yes, absolutely. And I will make sure that they know about that.
Awesome. Guys, I want to show everyone one more time here. We've got the YouTube channel, Scientology Audit. We also have the YouTube channel, Film the Police LA. And of course, your Twitter account is really the central hub of where it's all happening. I mean, I think I've seen you post videos to Twitter that don't get posted anywhere else, particularly about the Scientology stuff. The stuff that you posted outside of the Winter Wonderland was mind-blowing.
Yeah, listen, Twitter, quite honestly, I can post stuff on there. If I post stuff on TikTok, half of it gets taken down. You can't raise your voice without TikTok taking it down. Whereas on Twitter, I can post pretty much anything as long as I'm not making a sort of threat. And, listen, I strategically post on Twitter because that's where people who have been following me throughout my activism are. I'm new to TikTok. I'm new to YouTube with this channel. My followers, people who have seen me and seen my activism, people who know me know that I have gone to wars for people, for anyone, against organization. My thing is, I think it's more like anti-bullying. I like taking on large entities. I like taking on entities that normally just run over individuals and take them on as one person. Listen, I also wanted to show that I'm not afraid of Scientology. They're not scary to me. I think it's important to let people know that, I feel that they're a paper tiger in a lot of ways. Have they tried to do some intimidation? Yeah, they had a lady like a middle-aged white lady with curly hair following me home in her Subaru one night. That's not exactly intimidating. They one time had somebody waiting at the corner in a car, in a Prius that was not running. And as I came to the intersection, they just sped right through it. Does that intimidate me? No. It's insulting that you'd use a Prius and not like a Chevy truck or something big. But those are the two instances. Overall, they really have not messed with me. I think maybe they learned the LAPD told them, yeah, this guy, you're not going to get through to him you're not going to intimidate him, you're not going to scare him. Because they have. I'm used to having off-duty cops following me around at 2:00 in the morning, screaming out the window that they're going to kick my ass and things like that. That's what I'm used to. And if that's not going to scare me, there's nothing that they're going to do that's going to scare me, especially since, listen, they've tried what they could do, but take down my videos, I make more. You're not going to stop it. They tried to use the police against me. They've tried to have me arrested. I don't know how many times now. It hasn't worked. I know what I'm doing. I know the laws. They don't. And yeah.
That's great. Well, I think Scientology has met its match, and as usual, they did it to themselves. What did they pulled this one in?
Yeah, they did.
That's
absolutely
Scientology
did it to
speak.
Oh, is that? What does that mean?
Anything bad that happens to you, Scientology believes you did something to pull it in. You did it to yourself, basically.
Oh.
So they pulled it in. You can say that to the security guard. What did you do to pull me in?
I am absolutely going to say that. I'm going to go head up there in a little while and say that.
Usually, what did David Miscavige do to pull this in?
Actually, I want to go look. I actually filed a crime report last night at the police station against one of the security guards. About a month ago, he kept coming up into my face, bumping my camera, bumping my hand. And, listen, I let it go because to me, it's minor stuff. But if they are going to use that as a weapon against a lady to have her arrested for, accidentally touching somebody, then listen, this guy wasn't accidentally touching me. He was doing it. So therefore, I filed the crime report against him, and I want to see him prosecuted listen, and it's not just a matter of just having him prosecuted and giving the Scientologists a taste of their own medicine, fair game, but it's also to test the LAPD. How far are you willing to go to protect them? Is there going to be a double standard in this instance? If you do not have this man prosecuted, but yet you're having this woman prosecuted, I think that will be pretty interesting to show, and it'll honestly cause me to absolutely flip out. So yeah, let's see how they handle this one.
Incredible. Okay, let's see. We got a few comments here. Anon says, correction for the future. It's a hydrogen bomb, not an atomic bomb. He must have been seeing some of your videos.
Now I know. But my thing is, okay, so you have the technology to come from other galaxies, but you're using a hydrogen bomb. You'd think there would be, something, a little bit more advanced than that. But okay, now I know.
Exactly. All right, I'm just throwing some of these others up on the screen. I stand with AA, Ron. Keep up the great work, bro. Let's see. CWC, Sony. Oh, CO Belf. Okay, I tried to do what he did and talk to people outside the Anchorage mission, but no one came by all weekend and I froze to death. Yeah, that's you. You got to go by the biggest Scientology orgs, otherwise there's not even going to be anybody there. Love it says
That's what I
print
learned
the OT. Go
No,
ahead.
that's what I learned from you also, because I remember you mentioning in one of your videos that like the Philadelphia office is really struggling. They don't even bring in enough money to pay for the utility bills. I was in
Yeah.
New York a few months ago and I went past their building, and it seemed so dead over there. It seems like outside of some of these larger locations, I guess like Los Angeles and I guess some places in Florida, they're not really getting the traffic that they need, are they?
Some of them are in locations where people they don't even have any foot traffic, like
No.
they're in kind of industrial commercial areas that don't even have foot traffic. Like that's what's. It's good that you're in LA, so you can actually at least be by buildings where people are walking by. Let's see what Fabian is saying. While you're preventing people from going in there, aren't you shoving them who are already in, like Sebastian, way more into it by confirming the cliches about the outside world? All right, what do we think about this one?
No, I think that's a really good question. So I come to this from a different standpoint. I look at it as I want to end this organization, and the best way to do that is, it's about money. It's making sure you can't get new members in there and new money. Um, it's hard, listen. It's hard. Is it hard to talk somebody in Scientology out? Yeah, it's super hard. The best way to prevent people from having their lives ruined by Scientology is preventing new members from joining. So yeah, I understand that me going off on them may reinforce their perceptions or what they've been told. That's one of those things where they're gonna, they got to take one for the team. I'm more focused on preventing new members from coming in. The ones that are there, they're already hardened. I can spend so much time trying to talk them out of it. Am I going to get through to them? Probably not. The numbers
Yeah.
are going to say no. Maybe 1% I can get through to, but it'll take a lot of effort. I'd rather spend my effort trying to prevent new members from coming in. And the best way to do that is, stopping them at the point of attack right when they're at the door, but also getting the message out on social media. The best way to do that is, sort of make things go viral, get eyeballs on
Yeah.
things.
I agree with you. So not only is Sebastian only one person, but he's already one of their most dedicated members because he's a security guard and senior HCO. He's a second generation member, so he's born and raised. He's one of these guys who even if he wanted to leave, he wouldn't be able to easily leave. And so what are we going to not try to prevent hundreds of people from getting into Scientology because we're worried about reinforcing, cliches and stereotypes in Sebastian. But Fabian, I will say this. The concern that you're mentioning is why I personally feel it's overall more effective if it's not shouting, if it's not profanity, if it's not insulting. But it's also not my place to tell everybody how they should do what they're doing. But if someone wants to know why I would recommend it be done that way, it is for this very reason. So that it'd be interesting if even the security guards had to start wondering, geez, these guys, they're not even as bad as we're being told they are. But at the end of the day, do I care if Sebastian is sitting there going, oh, they're just as bad as we told they were? I don't really care. He's one person. That's those are my 2 cents on it. But respect the opinion, Fabian. Absolutely. Let's see. Carrie says, do you know history on security guard Angel at the LA org? Are you familiar with Angel?
Yeah, so I have some history on him. I've talked to people who are somebody who was a family friend. He's second generation. His mother was in it. They said that this person who was a family friend actually went through some of their training with Angel's mother. She blackmailed them, stole a bunch of their money, she said. Said that she was a terrible person, and said that karma is getting back at her through Angel being miserable every day. They were not happy with the family. So yeah, I know that's the information I do have. I mean, I have information on many of them. There's one person, I'm not going to mention her name. She got into this because she comes from a bad environment. She comes from a situation, home life was terrible. It sounds like it was abusive. She had medical conditions. Scientology told her that they will take care of her medical conditions and she'll be able to travel the world. Now she just basically walks up and down one street. It's not exactly traveling the world. Yeah, so, there's another one who is an artist. I have other people who said, I asked them, do you want me to tell your family members anything? Do you want me to send a message? I won't film it. I'll just kind of whisper it to them. And they said no, because they're afraid that if they were to get caught, they would not be able to see their family members on my videos anymore. That's the only connection they have, is just literally seeing the videos. And I haven't seen them in 8 years. Just seeing them on video is, they've even said maybe this is their family now, because they came from such a horrible environment, a terribly abusive environment, that, yeah, maybe this is where they want to be. And they're kind of, not that they're at peace, they actually think it's all insane, but they sort of understand how they got there. I feel like a lot of times people just get there through that void in their life one way or another, I guess, looking for something. Wow. I feel like they take advantage of vulnerable people, but yeah, these are people who have been through some things. So it's funny you should mention that, because I used to just constantly just tear them all apart. I do things a little differently now, because I have to understand that, these are people that may not want to be there. Maybe they want to be there, but it's clear. And just looking in their eyes, there's one girl I see out there. You could tell she doesn't want to be there. She's let me know as much just through her body language when I say certain things. So,
and you know what's crazy? If they cared about what she felt, they could just give her a different job where she didn't have to be there. It's not like the choices are be there or leave the Sea Org. They could just give her another job where she didn't have to be there, but they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. We got a few more here. Red Tar for me. Keep up the good work, both of you. Go get them. Thank you very much. And M. Volmer 80, thank you for helping to bring awareness. It's truly our pleasure. A Christian person says, first timer, you're doing a great job, Aaron. Been viewing for a long time. Glad to see other channels I subscribe to as well on this thread. Awesome. And last one here. Aaron, you just quadrupled your reach. Work against Scientology by connecting with this guy and his connections. Awesome.
I think it's the other way around.
All right. Well, hey, one last time, guys. Film the Police LA. Film the Police on Twitter. Film the Police LA on YouTube. Scientology Audit on YouTube. William, let's do a lot of stuff together.
Yeah, absolutely. I listen. I have, like I said, I come into this not knowing much about Scientology. I have been watching your channel to learn about it. I've been talking to them about the free wins and what's going on with that. I heard you guys aren't having your OTA done there now, and it kind of freaks them out a little bit when I tell them this. They tell me I'm lying, but when they tell me I'm lying, it's telling me that it's sort of getting through to them. If they didn't believe me, they would just shrug me off. But when they get defensive like that, it's telling me something, and I learned that from you.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for joining me on this, William. Everyone watching, guys, we got 2,200 people watching. Hit that like button. It's not too late. It helps with the algorithm, believe it or not. Thanks to everyone who watches until the very end, you guys, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay,
thank you.
If you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe